Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Laura Klein, and I'm with Rodan and Fields. Today, I have another very special guest with me. Her name is Lauren Brollier. Lauren is an inspirational speaker, a transformational life coach. She has studied under and taken the stage with such names as Mary Morcier and best-selling author Matthew Boggs. With over a decade of experience in education, Lauren brings easy, practical applications to spiritual principles. Her own experience, though with grief, betrayal, and loss, is what fuels her to help others dust themselves off and reach their highest potential. Through her speaking and coaching, she has inspired thousands of people to live a life they love. Lauren, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Laura. I'm so excited to be with you.
So since I've met you, I just have been so inspired by the work that you're doing. You always have words of wisdom and tactical things, and you're all about taking action. And I think with my Rodan and Fields business has exposed me to so many people now who inspire me, and you are one of those people that really inspire me to dream bigger. So I'm so excited to share you with all of my friends and network. So I have a few questions for you. So what brought you to the work that you do now?
So it's interesting. I visioned for my whole life to be in education. So I was a teacher. I worked for Berkeley Public Schools for several years. So I started as a teacher, and then I became a literacy coach, which is basically a coach for teachers and students to improve reading and writing. And I just visioned for my life to be in education. I was planning to become a principal and maybe someday a superintendent. And that was sort of my big dream. And I never really thought of anything else for my life. And something happened though, and this is what happens within us, is I started to get a different longing. And I think sometimes when we get a different longing than what we're doing, it can be really scary, because it's like, if I let myself know I have a longing for something else, how is that going to mess up everything that I've built so far? And so what I was doing is I was doing a side business where I was selling and sharing nutritional products and supplements. And I was at basically an income of like $400 a month doing that. And I was super proud of that, because as a teacher, as you can imagine, an extra $400 was a good deal. And I just had this longing, like deep down inside me, like, what would it be like to be a businesswoman? I didn't even know what that really meant, but it was just like, what would it be like to be an entrepreneur and have more freedom? And, as a teacher, I would walk past, restaurants on a Saturday and think, what would it be like to be in a restaurant on a Tuesday at noon, like just that kind of freedom. And so I was stuck though. I couldn't figure out how to get past $400 a month over and over again. And then I had another longing, and this was another sort of deep and secret longing. And it was, I had just gotten married, and I was I guess you would call a newlywed. I was like maybe 6-8 months into my marriage. And I felt deep longing in that. And I didn't know if I had watched too many Hallmark movies or if this was normal, but I just sort of felt like I just am not sure about this. And that scared me deeply, because like I said, I'd just gotten married. So I started working with affirmations. I didn't know anything, a lot about spiritual work or anything like that. But I'd read a book that said, if you affirm the things you want to create, things will start shifting. So I started to affirm, I'm a leader, I help other women, I have a business. And then I also started to say affirmations about my relationship. My husband and I grow deeper in love and things of that nature. And then 40 days into saying these affirmations, my husband came home and he looked me in the eyes and he said, I don't think you're my dream girl. And obviously you can imagine why I'd never forget that day, but it just the feeling, every time I say that out loud, it just brings me back into that, your stomach drops, your heart drops. It was anger, it was shock, and just everything that you can imagine when this person who said that they were going to love you forever is telling you you're not it for me. And so, as you can imagine, all sorts of turmoil came about after that. But about 15 days after my husband left, I hit $10,000 in sales in my business. And so it didn't occur to me right away, but as I'm processing like the grief of a marriage and a vision being done, and I'm processing also at the same time celebrating this, it was so weird. It was like, I'm celebrating my business, I'm grieving and getting a divorce and all these things. And it occurred to me, because my affirmations kept coming back to my mind because I'd been saying them for so many days. Oh my God, if my husband doesn't love me, I've been affirming for 40 days that what I want in my life is falling deeply in love with somebody. And I started to think, what if what I was asking for is actually coming to me because that person could not provide what I was asking for. And then in my business, it came true. And so I just got really curious about what happened, what energetically, spiritually happened in my life to create this result. And it came out later that my husband was cheating on me, living sort of a double life in many regards. And so it was like, oh my gosh, I felt like this gift had been given to me, that something that I was blind to for so long about him came to me when not anything with him, when I decided that I wanted something more for myself. And so to make a long story short, Laura, how I got into this work was I wanted to figure out what it was that had happened to me and how I could help other people with that. I'll never forget a couple weeks after I found out that my husband, didn't want to be with me, was living sort of a double life, all of this, I opened up Instagram and randomly there was this other person that I followed. I didn't know her. She was talking about being left 1 week after she got married. And when I saw that, I just had this fleeting thought of, I'm not alone. Because when it happens to you, you feel like, oh my God, I'm the only one that this has ever happened to. Your husband leaves you a year into marriage. I've got like this Dateline thing going on. I must be the only one, right? And when I saw that woman post that, I thought to myself, I have to tell this story. I can't keep it to myself because if anybody else thinks they're alone, like that's just not okay.
Yeah, it gives me chills when you tell that story. And, a lot of people, I always talk about sliding doors. There's moments in your life where you can go through this door, you can go through that door. And I'm always so impressed when people do pick themselves up and they prosper and they become even a better person than they were previously. And in the moment, I'm sure you feel just defeated and just torn down. And how are you going to pick yourself back up? And it does take a lot of willpower and mindset and all of those things to pick yourself back up. Speaking of challenging times, it's very challenging times for so many people, the whole world, basically. I mean, we've never lived in these kinds of times before. So what can people do during these times to navigate the challenges that they face?
Yeah, such a great question. When I tell that story, especially in a short form like that, there's a risk of it seeming like so easy, like I just picked myself back up and learned spiritual principles. It wasn't, it was so, when people talk about the stages of grief, you talk about the denial, the anger, and that was 100% true, except it's not linear like that. It's like a ball of yarn all knotted up. And 1 minute you feel one thing and 1 minute you feel the other. What saved me and what my recommendation would be for people who are navigating the turmoil in the world right now, whether it's COVID or injustice or what anger that seems to be everywhere about whether you're wearing your mask or you're not, or, all these things that are sort of flying around, I think is very much the same with what I went through when I was angry and navigating things. Is all of us have two sides to our nature. So we have this finite side of our nature, the human side of our nature. The body is finite. We all have an expiration date and we vision that it's somewhere far off in the future. But that human side of our nature is the part that experiences condition, feelings, anything that's going on outside of us, the economy, hurt, grief is the human side of our nature. There's this other side of our nature, which is infinite. It's the part of us that's just energy. And so by matter of physics, we know energy can either be created or destroyed. So there's some part of me that's infinite, that was with me before I took this body and will be with me when I lay this body down. And so how do I tap into that part of me though, when so much is happening in the human condition? So what I do is I just ask myself, who is it in me that can see my body, hear my thoughts, that can notice, oh, right now I'm watching an interview and I'm thinking this, who is that? Because it's more than all my emotions, all my body, all the things I'm going through. So first, I would suggest to people to tap into that there is this part of me, even though sometimes it feels as small of a grain of sand, that doesn't have the condition, it just has the awareness. And so That's number one. Number two is not trying to stuff down emotions. It's not like I'm going to positive think my way out of what's occurring for me, right?
Right.
So like I honored it. I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of anger. I did a lot of, I won't cuss on this, but you're a piece of, what, I just let myself experience that. But the key is not pitching a tent and living there. So, we could live in all things COVID. If we watch the news all day and worry about things, we could seriously pitch a tent and just camp there for days.
Right.
But the key is to see the circumstance, but not have it make meaning about your life. So I see the circumstance. My husband's left me. He's told me I bring nothing to the table. He's blaming his escapades on my lack, right? I can understand that fact, but it doesn't have to mean something about me.
Right.
And that's the difference. It's like COVID, for those of you that are watching this that are business owners, you could think two things about it. This is the end of my business, or this is an opportunity for growth. And if I pitch a tent over here, yeah. So I don't know if that answers, but it's like honoring your human emotion, but not living only there.
Well, I do think it's really important for people to let themselves go through those stages, just even with grief. I mean, everyone deals with grief in so many different ways. And I think that's a really good analogy to say what we're going through is kind of going through grief. I mean, I travel all the time and we are homebound. We're making the best of our homebound, but we miss the things that we normally used to go to concerts, go to festivals, go traveling. Yeah. And so, we could be depressed and pretend, and just live in that house, in that tent, and we're choosing not to. So I think being aware is really important.
Yes.
And making a choice, and have that kind of mindset.
I think one of the things to give people a tangible tool about not pitching a tent there is, so like when I'm feeling some sort of, like you're saying, like the grief about travel, like, gosh, I'm really missing that. I wish I could be there, whatever, to honor that, go, I'm really grieving this. And this is like something that I love to do and I'm not able to do it right now. And then here's the shift. So, cause you've honored it. How much more do you have to feel it? Right? Like you've honored it right there. And then the next step is, but what would I love to bring to this moment? The moment I'm in, what would I love to bring to it? And sometimes I hear myself say strength or positivity or confidence or just peace or a breath. But it's always about bringing yourself back to, but in this moment, who would I love to be? What would I love to be experiencing? And if you check in with yourself like that multiple times a day, be surprised at how much you can bring wherever you are.
Yeah. I've been doing so much work, mindset and happiness work and all of that. And I think that that's all kind of related to choosing and being self-aware, is so important. And I think, we've all had to slow down, and it's giving us that time and that opportunity to really reflect and to make a choice. So I think, there are some opportunities that come out of this negative world that is kind of happening around us, but we can choose maybe to turn it around and get something out of it.
In fact, there's an old book. It's like 11th century book by a Christian mystic called St. John of the Cross was his name. And he wrote a book. It's really actually like a very like heavy old English sort of book. But one of the things that comes out of that is it's called Dark Night of the Soul. And I think in some ways, as a country, as a global community, we're all sort of going through that dark night of the soul. But he says something interesting. He says, when you try to make it go away, like this isn't happening, I'm just going to push it aside, that's when you suffer.
Yeah.
But if you just look it in the eye, he said 3 things will happen. You'll feel relief, you'll feel release. And then he says this, and I think it's key for all of us. The strangest thing will happen to you is that you'll realize you don't want it to end too soon because you want every gift it's come to bring you. And I felt that when I was getting a divorce. It was like, as soon as I really started to heal and my business was taking off, I had this feeling of like, no, I don't want it to end because it brought me so much. And it's this very strange thing. It's like people in the beginning of COVID were saying like, I feel guilty because there's some good things about being home. And there's no need to feel guilty. It can't come to bring anything in a polar universe, nothing can be bad without there being an equal good. So harvest those gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way, because there have been so many wonderful things that have come out of being at home and having to not be on the go all the time. So there are things that I'm going to take with me. I think a lot of people feel that way. It's like it's adding to what the new normal will be eventually, when we do start to open up and things get a little bit more normal.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone who says that I can't dream, or that I don't have a passion?
This is so there's a knower inside of all of us that knows every question that we ask it. But a lot of us have been trained from the time we're a young kid to disconnect with that part of ourselves. Be realistic, be practical. In school, there's a right and a wrong answer to things traditionally, the way that we are trained. And so if you feel like you can't dream, first of all, people hear the word dream and they think like, oh, I have to have a dream of saving the whole entire planet. A dream is simply, I'd love to go on a cruise to Italy, or I'd love to, go to this place with my girlfriends and have a weekend away. That's a dream. And so I think what happens is we make so much meaning out of that word that we think, oh, well, it's not big enough if I just want to be healthy and enjoy my friends. That is a dream. That is a vision. And so I would say start with what you do know. So many of my clients feel this way. In fact, I would say about 60 to 70% of people have no idea what they want to create when they start their dream journey. And I would say start with what you do know. So like, for example, with our health, nobody wants to wake up and have arthritis or cancer, or right. So like everybody wants vibrant health. So like start with the parts you do know. Where do you want to travel? What would you love for your health? How would you love to see your family grow into deeper relationships? So it's really about starting what you do know. In terms of passion, I would recommend, and I would say to anybody, even if you do know what your dream is, to make a list of 30 things that bring you joy, happiness, expansion. So like some of the things on my list, simple. When the sun hits my skin, I feel this amazing, just, like that yummy, a good cocktail. I love a good cocktail, so start to make a list of 30 things that bring you joy. It could be larger things like traveling to a different country. It could be simple as the sun kissing your skin. And then when you make the list, you'll have an awareness, oh, I could be doing more of this every day. And when you start to do more things that bring you joy, your passion gets unleashed.
I love the fact I've never had that conversation about dreaming. When my definition of dreaming has been way bigger, and not thinking about dreaming little and seeing where that goes, and hitting those little milestones and those little goals. That's really interesting. I love that. Is there a dream that's too big?
I don't believe there's any dream that's too big, because I have seen, think about it. I'm a broke when I very first wrote my first dream, I was a broke, divorced school teacher living at my mom's house because I was trying to get back on my feet. And I had a dream, and that was to speak to crowds of thousands of people, was to build a large business, to do all these different things. It's been a very short time. And I haven't reached my ultimate vision, but I've literally had the privilege of helping thousands of people and built a multiple 6-figure business. And I have employees now, and I have, I fell in love again, like all these things that sitting where I was sitting seemed like, oh my God, this is a huge dream. I'm never going to be able to do this. And this is, I feel like, the tip of the iceberg in my life. And I've watched it with clients. I've watched clients in very short time do like crazy, insane things that you couldn't even think about. So I don't think any dream is too big. I think the only limits are the ones that we give ourselves. And I think that you're only going to create something if you think of it first. So the worst thing that can happen, let's say you dream big. Let's say you say, okay, I'm going to be the first woman to land a spaceship on Mars. Let's say that's your dream. You don't have it right now. If it doesn't come true, you don't have it. So nothing worse can happen if a dream doesn't come true. It's just literally the life that you have now. So why, if you're never going to have it if you don't dream it up. So why not just, stretch it out? I was actually watching a show, I think it was called World's Best. It was kind of like an America's Got Talent. There was this little kid who was playing piano. He ended up winning the whole competition. And someone asked him, where would you most love to play piano? And, I thought he was going to say like Disneyland or Carnegie Hall. And he goes, I'm going to bring my piano up to the moon and I'm going to play Moonlight Sonata.
Oh my God.
And I thought, and I get chills every time I think about that, because I'm like, you know what? I bet he will. And recently I heard that Elon Musk and him had actually talked, because Elon Musk is going to take 8 artists up to the moon. And I'm thinking to myself, if he didn't affirm that out loud, he never would have had that opportunity.
Oh,
So
I love that.
that's my thing, is like, you're never going to do it if you don't first dream it and affirm it. So you might as well stretch it out as big as you can stretch it.
Right. And then, when you're on that journey going towards that goal, something else might trigger, show up as something else that you want. And if you weren't on that path, you wouldn't have gotten to that place.
Exactly.
So I think I've noticed that with my Rodan and Fields business. When I first joined, I just wanted, a discount on my skincare. And as time has gone on, I'm now an entrepreneur. I have a team. I am dreaming bigger and bigger each and every day. And I know that it's those little steps that you have to take to get you there. It's not going to happen overnight.
That's right. When something feels expansive, like for you, it was, I could get a discount on this. That's great. I love this stuff. Expansion leads to more expansion.
Yeah.
So when you feel that thing inside of you, and then look, not only, Laura, have you created an amazing team and all this, the inspiration you bring to people, the light you bring to people. And then, I am a Rodan and Fields user myself. So I should send you my before and after. I've been afraid to send it because the before is so scary, but I literally had acne covering my entire face. And through the Unblemish, and now I use Unblemish in the morning and Redefine at night. You can see, I've got good lighting in here, and the level of confidence that you gain from that. You cannot put a price on me waking up and not looking in the mirror and hating it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It is something that I really love, hearing those, those results and those before and afters, because feeling confident in your own skin, you can't there's not enough money in the world to be able to fulfill that for yourself.
Yeah. It's so great. So I would say exactly what you just said, those little steps, those little tiny things that you have no idea the impact, sort of the butterfly effect of all the different things that you can create from a small step that felt expansive to you.
Yeah, so exciting. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us today. I always learn something new and get so inspired. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. You are such a light, and I thank you for shining it. It's really just meaningful and impactful to everybody who gets the opportunity to work with you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you everyone who joined us here today. If you like what you've heard and you want to learn more about Lauren or myself, I will be putting our website and contact information in the comments section, and feel free to share, like, and comment. All right. Thank you so much. See you later.